Swaby, and it is my pleasure to be the moderator for this morning's proceedings. And I would like to acknowledge the guests in our midst. Mr. Enesito Ruiz Rodriguez, Head of Corporation, the Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica. Mr. Javier San Roman, Deputy Head of Mission and then Charge of Affairs at the Embassy of Spain. Mr. Andre Fache, Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Belize, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and the Cayman Islands. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Mrs. Nadine Chambers-Goss, the Executive Director of Rise Life Management Services, Mr. Leon Sams, Executive Director for the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, other distinguished guests or partners that comprise the Improved Forest Management and Livelihoods for a Better Jamaica project. I just mentioned Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, so our other stakeholders with that group, Tulloch Estates, Beanie Bud, Jamaica. All right, just making sure. And I see our performers are here. I see representatives from the Hope Royal Botanical Gardens, Mrs. Carla Myrie. Other persons, if I don't articulate exactly who are here, I do crave your forgiveness, but welcome officially. It's a rainy day, but it will not rain on this parade. So I'm happy to see you safe and dry, and of course we wish the persons who are yet to join us very safe traverse to the location as we proceed. Now, before I dive into the other agenda items, just a few housekeeping matters. I'd want to let you know that even though we're very comfortable in this space, it's a borrowed space. So letting you know that the entry into the nursery area of the forestry department, which is to my left, is strictly prohibited. And access to the main building at the forestry department will not be granted at any point during the event. And smoking is strictly prohibited on the premises. So I guess we'll just, we're content with staying inside and enjoying the sweet sound of the rain as we proceed at this time. I'm going to invite Mrs. Keisha Harrison from Rise Life Management Services to lead us into a word of prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day that you have given unto us. We come with grateful hearts this morning, O God, because we are here safely. And mighty God, we welcome you into this space, into this atmosphere, O Lord God. We put the proceedings, Almighty God, of this event into your hands, and we tell you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Keisha. At this time, I'm going to invite everyone to stand as we are going to play the national anthems of the European Union and Jamaica, respectively. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I walked into the room this morning, one of the first things that caught my eyes was the beautifully decorated table. Now I see a second table with some arts and crafts, which I rightfully assumed was part of this project, and I was so anxious, to explore and to indulge the audience, to explore with time allotting. But I also reflected, on this occasion, celebrating or reflecting on the closeout for this impactful project, improved forest management and livelihoods for a better Jamaica. When we think about tree planting, forest management, we know without a doubt that this features significantly in the country's environment agenda, whether from a local, regional, or geopolitical standpoint. So I do think that a project of this nature, very important, and for those of us that are not intimately familiar with some of the activities or the services within this project, I know that we are keen on hearing all that has been achieved, and I think who better else to share this with us than Mrs. Nadine Chambers-Gosse, Executive Director of Rise Life Management Services, who will share the project overview and the achievements.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. All of us on the RISE team, we were all a little concerned this morning when we saw the weather. And, there were a lot of deliberations, shouldn't we, in the interest of the safety of our participants. But we decided to go ahead, and I am so pleased to see how many persons made it out this morning. And for those who are joining us online, thank you for being a part of this closing ceremony. This has been a very special project for Rise Life Management Services, and we really are thankful to our partners, who I will begin to formally acknowledge. So let me start by acknowledging I'm telling you, I don't know if it's age, but this print is killing my eyes. Let me just get some more distance. Even though we have worked so much with Annie Cheto, but I want to give him his formal title, because this project, it really has been like a family affair, a true joint effort, and we really do have some fantastic achievements that we want to share with you this morning. So let me first start by recognizing our wonderful MC Master of Ceremonies, Miss Dana Lynn Swaby, the Honorable Matthew Samuda, who we know will be joining us shortly, who is the Minister in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And here is the Minister walking in just on time. We are also pleased to have with us this morning Mr. Javier San Roman, who is the Deputy Head of Mission and Charge d'Affaires at the Embassy of Spain. We are also delighted to have one of our key partners, Mr. Jerome Smith, the Principal Director for Forest Operations at the Forestry Department, as well as one of our key partners, Mr. Leon Sams, Executive Director of the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, as well as Miss Ashley Rousseau, who won't be here with us physically this morning, but who has sent greetings. But we do have her team from Beanie Bud, who managed to survive the weather, and are actually here this morning with some items on display. And of course, our very expert partner in this project from the very beginning, Mr. Roger Turner of Tullow Estates. I want to welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, dancers, partners that we've just found. I'm looking at Carla Myrie. Welcome and good morning. It is truly my delight to be here this morning, and in a sense, it's like the project has come full circle, the fact that we're even hosting it here at the Forestry Department, because from the very beginning, we would have gotten quite a bit of support from the technical experts of the Forestry Department. We have one of them in our midst in the form of Mr. Jerome, and we also were assisted by two very other talented consultants in the form of Eloy Ignacio and Soren Dalsgaard. So I really want to make that shout out before we get into looking on the highlights of the project, because without them, we would not have been able to put this very relevant and impactful project together. We wouldn't have been able to incorporate all the different elements to make sure that it aligned even with the mandate and the missions of the Forestry Department. So we really want to appreciate our host this morning, the Forestry Department. So let me get started and start to share some details now on the IFMAL project. Am I blocking anyone? Can you see clearly? Do I need to shift? All right, so the IFMAL project, which really stands for the Improved Forest Management and Livelihoods for a Better Jamaica project, or ACTION, as the EU refers to its funded programs, is an 18-month project which falls under the European Union's program to promote the participation of civil society in the forestry sector, and more specifically, to focus on forestry management and conservation service. So RISE was actually awarded this project in December 2021, and it valued about 244,000, just a little shy of 245,000 euros, which would be equivalent to 58 million Jamaican dollars. So it was quite a substantial project for us. Now, we had the official launch of the ceremony last year, March 2021, having gotten the award in December. And for this launch, we actually had it at the Beanie Buds main campus in Manchester, which was quite fitting. I believe we were also recognizing the UN-designated International Day of Forests at the time. And so when we started this project, we took this journey with our three key partners, which are Beanie Bud, which is a group of artisans focusing on the traditional straw and grass craft. We also have the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, which is a residential institution that serves persons with disabilities, specifically those who are deaf. And we also have, of course, Tolo Estates. And so we work together to go through and implement a series of broad objectives, which I'll just highlight quickly for you, which was really to expand forest coverage and improve sustainable environmental practices, to promote sustainable livelihoods using wood and non-wood forest products, for example, straw and grass, for vulnerable populations such as persons with disabilities, to reduce poverty among rural and deep rural RADA registered farmers by establishing a nursery to produce certified Jamaican mahogany seedlings, as well as disease-resistant clonal grafted cocoa plants and coconut seedlings. Now, if that sounded like a technical mouthful, don't worry. It was for us when we started, but we do have Mr. Turner who will get into a little bit more details for you. We also wanted to look at improving the livelihood of small farmers and artisans from 2 rural St. Catherine communities in the cultural tradition of straw craft through the sustainable planting, harvesting, processing, and marketing of traditional items using grass. And I was speaking with Annie Cheto this morning because he had actually received one of these beautiful items that were made from the straw and grass elements. And he told me, though, that he couldn't bring it this morning. He had to be more practical and take his umbrella, which makes sense. We want him to be able to preserve that lovely item. And finally, we wanted to increase public awareness of the protective function of forests and the significance of Jamaica's forests towards climate change resilience. And I mean, nobody has to question, the importance of forests now, given the kind of dramatic changes that we have been seeing, witnessing, and experiencing even today in terms of the impact of the climate crises within which we now find ourselves. Now, IFMAL, some of you might be familiar with RISE, so you would know that this is not typically what we are known for. But what IFMAL did was present us with an opportunity to expand our realm of impact and apply our 34 years of expertise to the delivery of multifaceted interventions that recognized the inextricable connection between man and the natural environment. The activities executed reflected Rise's commitment to its motto of changing lives for the better through its work with vulnerable populations and while addressing key forest and environmental conservation needs. Now, let's take a little bit more of a closer look at what some of these targets and, of course, the affiliated achievements were. Okay. Not that I need it, I could talk about this in my sleep, but just so I know what you're seeing. So we started, as I mentioned, one sec. We started out with 3 partners. The first of them, as soon as it comes back on the board, I believe, was it the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Roger. So at the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, we really did several, well, quite astonishing interventions with them. The first being establishing a 10-acre arboretum, which for those who may not be familiar with that term, an arboretum is really a standing forest. And what we did was to plant several species of endemic or indigenous Jamaican trees. And for this, we were also supported by the National Tree Planting Initiative of the Forestry Department. We also, boy, they're putting me to the test this morning. We also, with CCCD, had we helped them to expand their craft production facilities, where they actually have like a social enterprise where they engage persons who are deaf and hard of hearing to work in that facility. And if you know anything about Jamaica, Minister Samuda, I'm certain you can relate to the challenges, especially in terms of finding employment, meaningful and dignified employment for persons with disabilities, particularly women who are even more vulnerable. Wonderful. And so we were able to do that. That's actually the final point. We actually expanded their craft production facilities. We intended to do it at just one location, ended up doing it at 2 campuses for the CCCD, which means now that women both in central Jamaica and at their western Jamaica campus in Montego Bay now had an opportunity to obtain employment, which we think is wonderful. Next, we did something that was really a first of its kind here in Jamaica, which was to provide climate change training, climate change mitigation training, adaptation awareness training, as well as climate resilient agriculture training for 150 persons with disabilities. And when I say that this is a first of its kind, never before, thank you very much, that is applause worthy. Never before in Jamaica had there been this kind of climate-focused training done, and certainly not the way we did it in terms of ensuring that there were interpreters on board who were videotaped so that this material can then be packaged and passed on to the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities so that other persons in the wider Jamaica with disabilities can also access this information. So we're also quite proud of that. So that's also another applause-worthy item. And so, you know, the focus of this forestry project also had as a part of it the expansion of forest coverage, which we exceeded our targets as well. So between establishing that 10-acre arboretum that I mentioned, we also did help the CCCD to kind of beautify and improve its ability to generate revenue by beautifying the space. And because it is a residential school, we also planted fruit trees so that they now had a way to, you know, not have to spend so much from their purse to be able to provide the juices, or that more nutritious fruit items could be added to the meals of their students. So in total, we planted over 747 lumber trees, over 482 fruit trees, and 226 ornamental trees on our grand total of 14 acres of land. So that was also more than we had actually allocated for in the initial project. Thank you. And so what we're going to do now, because it doesn't make sense I stand here and talk, it's also good to see some photos. So the next slide is actually going to give you just a snapshot So here we have a team who were a part of the tree planting exercise. Over here we have the women who are being trained, oh, did I say training in bamboo craft production? So another part of the project was that the women would also, as a part of the new line that was introduced to the facility, that they would now produce bamboo-related craft materials. And you can see some of them here in terms of the bags, the pencil holders, and so on, that the ladies have been doing. And so that photo to the extreme, my extreme left, would be of a training session that was done with the women. And here we actually have one of the participants on this photo at the bottom, actually kind of refining one of the bamboo craft items. So it was really a new experience for us and for CCCD, and now the participants have an avenue through which they can generate more income for themselves and ensure the sustainability of the organization of the school. So our next partner in the project would have been, and I believe it might be, Tolo Estates, yes. And this is really where it got a little scientific, but also where it really delivered tremendous value, and you will see why in a minute. So under this project, we actually were able to do a DNA comparison of the Jamaican mahogany with the Honduran mahogany, because what we didn't know at the time, and many people might not know, is that the Jamaican mahogany is actually listed as a threatened or a near endangered species. And so this study, and because it takes so long, it takes 50 years for the Jamaican mahogany to mature. So, you know, there was very little research done on the species, and so this was actually, in terms of global body of knowledge, quite a remarkable piece of work that was done. And so we worked again with our partners at the forestry department, who helped us to identify about 35 samples, which we sent off to the Thunen Institute in Germany for the DNA analysis, and 7 of them came back as being true to type. And the beauty of that was that now we had certified Jamaican mahogany stock through which we could grow in our nursery, which was established as a part of the project, also at Tolo Estates, where these true to type certified Jamaican mahogany are available, and which of course we would pass on to the forestry department so that they can add it to their nursery. What this also does is provide another nursery space, so persons now in central Jamaica don't have to travel to Kingston to get the samples that they need. They can also go through Tolo Estates and get these there. So we're also expanding the availability of Jamaican mahogany so we can rebuild the population. The other part of it, and I was told, I spoke with the director for the UA Biotech unit, who told me that she was actually our competitor on this bid, because they actually wanted to do the study as well. They were trying to secure funding from the EU. And so we reached out to them knowing that they're doing work in that area, so we will be sharing the results from the DNA analysis so that they can have the genetic information that they need to really continue with their studies in this area. We also met Miss Myrie of the Royal Botanical Hope Gardens, and so we will be passing on to them so they can have in their nursery seedlings for their endemic species preservation unit. Through the project, RISE also took the bold step of joining the International Society of Tropical Foresters, and they will be getting the reports so that the information can be dispersed on an even more global level. That's also very applause-worthy. So as you can see in the second point, I had started to allude to the fact that we were able to establish a nursery, and a lot of care went into putting that nursery together, even in terms of the pots that were used. I won't go into the details because I know that is Roger's song to sing a little later. But you know, we were very particular to ensure that even as we were growing these seedlings in the nursery, everything was done so that we wouldn't lose any of the crop, and so we would have even more at the end of the project. And this worked because we actually have currently a total of 1,726 mahogany plants and 3,178 cocoa plants. And now the cocoa plants, I don't know if many of you are following the agricultural space, but a couple years ago, our cocoa industry was almost decimated because of this frosty pod disease. And so what we did through this project and under Roger's expert guidance was select truly superior genetic plants such as the ICS 95. And what you will realize here, these figures with the regular cocoa plants, a farmer would, with 15 to 20 boxes, would get about 150 to 200 kilograms per acre. But using the ICS 95, the grafted clonal plant, that yield, as you would know, would increase exponentially. I believe it would almost triple, where now they would get 500 to 700 kilograms of cocoa beans per acre. And when you look on this figure and you think that currently, even here in Jamaica, before they export, that they can get on the local market US $5 per kilogram for these beans, you would recognize that this project is helping these farmers to really secure solid financial returns from having participated in this project and gotten these particular seedlings. One of the things too, and also to make the farmers a little more resilient in terms of their earnings, less vulnerable to disease, is that we decided to actually build a fermentary dryer. This is a long story which was impacted severely by COVID, and we had to change plans several times. But what that did was actually help us to unveil yet another dynamic and innovative side of Jamaicans, because we actually found a local company, Tankweld, who are actually doing the build out of this fermentary dryer. And what this will do, normally farmers would put their beans out on what they call a barbecue to dry. But as you can see, with the weather becoming more unpredictable, we're having more rainy days and longer rainy seasons sometimes. This fermentary dryer will ensure that they are able to dry the beans and they will be at less risk of losing crops and their income generating capacities. Now, I love that because I think that the ministry should give us a percentage of that earning, given how we're really, strengthening that sector. So this is another thing that we are really proud about, because it's not just the farmers who are going to benefit, but it's everybody in their family, everybody in their community, from this opportunity to secure more revenue using even less space. Our next part now. Yes, Roger. Yes, the last one was coconuts, yes. And so a part of the project, we also, thinking of the farmers, these are farmers from rural and deep rural Jamaica, all of them rather registered. We wanted to also, on their properties, kind of replicate like a natural forest. And so we made 3 different types of trees available. So you had the cocoa plants through which they could earn revenue locally and on the international market through exports. We had the Jamaican mahogany, which is more for their families and future generation, because the Jamaican mahogany, the wood is one of the most prized woods, which is why it's in the state it's in now, because of over chopping or over harvesting for use on furniture. And so their families will be able to benefit from that on their land. And we also wanted to ensure that they would get coconut trees, so that would be now the taller layer in the forest. And just as we did in terms of the care we took in selecting the particular plants for the cocoa plants, we also made sure that we identified one of the more resistant species then, in terms of it being the Mapan coconut trees. And what we did was write, and just got it signed yesterday, with the Coconut Industry Board, a protocol where up to 100 RADA farmers can go and obtain these Mapan trees to put on their property. So that's another wonderful part of it. So here we have some photos showing samples of the plants. It's actually the nursery here. We have farmers, I believe this was a farmer training day, field school, a farmer field school. And you will notice in the photo we have a young man in a uniform. And that is because we actually got some youngsters interested in the project as well. So it's also the next generation of farmers that we were able to reach and get excited through this project. Over here we have, I mentioned the innovation with the fermentary dryer. Part of it is that it would actually be run primarily through clean energy or green energy, and this is the team setting up the solar panels at the property. And here we have a demo where farmers were learning how to do the clonal grafting of the cocoa plants. So, you know, it's passing on knowledge at every step of the way that we did through the work we did with Tolo Estates. So our final part now, which would be Beanie Bud, and this project, this intervention was really special for us while the information comes up in the background, because traditional craft making in Jamaica, it used to be a staple in the communities of Mount Industry and Glengoff. People used to build their houses, send their kids to school, and that died over the years. And so what we had was just a few older ladies who were still practicing the craft, and so we were at risk of losing that cultural knowledge. So through the project, one of the things that we sought to do was actually recruit new apprentices. I believe we exceeded, I think we had to recruit 20. I believe we did about 44 in total. We also, and one of the interesting things with the craft, the artisans though, is that there's actually a demand for their product, but there was very little supply. And so one of the areas we had to target was how could we convince more persons to come on board to plant the jippy jopper and the couscous grass so that when they do get orders, they could fill them. And so I believe we had targeted about 20 farmers who we wanted to get involved in that program. I believe we exceeded it, identifying about 27, right? And so overall for that period, we were able to distribute over 2,200 suckers to the artisans. And this was really useful because what we did to make sure that they could compete on the global and local market even more was we got a consultant in to help them to learn more new designs that would be more truly desired by the local and global population. And so we did 55 training sessions, exceeding the 15 that we had stated, and of course trained 46 new and existing artisans. And one of the things that we're really proud of is that we actually got Glengoff High involved. And so if you know that area, there's a lot of, it's kind of hilly, not kind of, it's very hilly. There's quite a bit of soil erosion. Even this morning when we didn't see the team, we were wondering, you know, were they okay? And so with the jippy jopper and couscous grass being planted, it kind of helped with the soil erosion in that area as well. And for the school, this now was another source. This is Glengoff High, through which the school could now generate income as well. We got the teachers involved, the students involved, and one of the most interesting things, you know, normally this kind of an occupation would be more female dominated, but when we were at the schools and doing the training, we had about 19 or 20 something students, and 18 of them were male. So the male actually outpaced the participation of female because they saw the potential for revenue generation from this activity. And so just as with the previous slide, I'm going to show next some photos just kind of highlighting the training that was done. Here we have some of the young men practicing the weaving technique with the grass. We also have one of the young apprentices trying her hand as well. And of course, we have the consultant at the top showing the women some new designs. One of the things that came, oh yes, and here it is, some of them being planted on the hillside to kind of help with the soil erosion issue as well. Now, there were several connections made through this project which we had not anticipated, but you know, will go on to deliver more significant benefits way after the official closing at the end of this month. And some of these include, okay, so one of them really that we're very proud of is the connection that we made with the Sandals Foundation. And this was actually like a cross-pollination, if you will, between two of the project partners. So the consultant who we got to work with the artisans of Beanie Bud actually had worked extensively with the Sandals Foundation before, and so she was able to speak with Sandals and get them to commit to purchasing the craft items made by CCCD to have them available on sale through all the Sandals hotels here in Jamaica. That is a very clappable thing. The second major point is, of course, we made a connection with the Jamaica Agricultural Society, which had not been on our radar. You know, we were so taken with RADA that we missed the Jamaica Agricultural Society. But what they've done is actually connected us with a group of coffee growers in the Blue Mountain who also wish to diversify and get more involved in cocoa planting and export. And we're actually desperate to find disease-resistant cocoa plants. So through the efforts of the Jamaica Agricultural Society representative, I don't see her here, Mrs. Janet Pullen, we were able to make that connection, and we will be doing a formal handover of a number of the seedlings to those coffee growers. The next point as well, and I know for the EU, Anicheto, that you do place a lot of focus in terms of projects kind of communicating with each other and amplifying the benefits that they're able to deliver. And so there were several of that through this project. And so through the same connection that we made with the Jamaica Agricultural Society, they now were able to provide guidance, technical guidance, to a group of indigenous persons we will be working with on another EU project that RISE has, which is the Civil Society Boost Initiative. And so they will be sharing ways with them to help them make their projects more effective and sustainable, also in the field of agriculture and forest. And what we did through the project as well, another EU-funded project that we were able to connect with is the participatory budgeting and financial management for the forest sector in Jamaica. And this would not have been possible had we not been in this forestry project. And because of that, we were able to join a CSO coalition with about 34 members. And you can imagine just the power of being able to harness all of those voices now, the advocacy that will be done so that civil society players and the wider citizenry now have a greater voice in terms of the national budgeting process, in terms of how funding is allocated, in terms of making sure that the government is held more accountable when it implements its different programs using the people's money. So that, I think, was really something very meaningful for us, because we also got training in areas such as advocacy, which can be passed on to yet another EU-related project we're doing. We can now take it more broader to impact the more wider CSO sector, sharing it with CSOs in the regular CSO space, not necessarily forest-related, so that they can also improve their advocacy skills. And so I am winding down. I'm almost at the end. So, when we look at the project in total, it's not a single project. You really have to look at it for the sum of its parts, and really that we didn't just make a difference in the 243 direct beneficiaries we have identified so far, because there's still more to come, but the fact that it really does contribute to both national development goals and also to the government priorities of Jamaica. And so some of these, in terms of the development goals, would be ensuring that Jamaica has a healthy natural environment, making sure that people have reached their full potential in the society, which, for persons with disabilities in particular, if you're not aware of the issues surrounding climate change, then you can't even advocate on your behalf or share with people what my needs are so they can be taken into consideration for policy change, etc. So we're very proud of that as well. And of course, all of that feeds into the wider international SDGs as well. So ladies and gentlemen, this project has meant so much to RISE. And I know it has been very meaningful for our partners. Mr. Sam shared with us today, they're really looking forward to building on the gains that they've made through the project. So, even though we're here today to celebrate the close of the ceremony, this is really a project that will continue for months and years beyond what we do today. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Goss. I would say keep the applause going, but I know you've been doing it throughout the presentation, so perhaps your hands may be tired, but certainly, no doubt, that was a very comprehensive overview and a comprehensive project. I'm sorry. I know we're on schedule, but I mean, this is a closing ceremony. So we were very happy to follow you, Mrs. Goss, as you reflected on the achievements of the project that span climate education and capacity building, farming, crop production, so many aspects of, scientific, cultural, traditional integration. And even in my capacity as a climate communicator and communication specialist, my heart leapt several times, especially when you mentioned that this is not something typically that RISE does, but it is important because when you think about the mainstreaming of climate actions, you don't want to only target bespoke climate and environment organizations. So I do think, this was a very well-integrated project that spoke to so many aspects of sustainable environment, management of natural resources and so on. So we're really grateful to see the kind of thing. And just a final point before I transition, it was very important, as you mentioned, the inclusion of people with disabilities or the differently abled community. 2 years ago, I did some research, and I even speaking with some of the organizations that target people with disabilities, and they lamented the fact that oftentimes people with disabilities or differently able people are not included in climate awareness building or capacity building initiatives. So we are really happy to see the scope and magnitude of what this project was able to achieve. So commendations to all the partners and the stakeholders, yes, for giving of yourselves and the results that came through this very wonderful initiative. Now, I remember before when Mrs. Goss started and she was doing the acknowledgements, and she mentioned Senator Samuda, who she thought wasn't here yet, and he walked in. And I don't know if you're the only, as a Jamaican, who said, "I'm going to live long here," as he stepped in. So at this time, I'll now hand over to the Honorable Matthew Samuda from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation to bring remarks.
Thank you so much, Madam Master of Ceremonies. We seem to be running into each other quite often these days. I'm not sure if it's because it's COP season or because you're finding yourself omnipresent, but indeed, thank you for the warm welcome. Allow me to acknowledge all the partners in this very important project. I find myself in this room pretty often, and pretty often it is with our partners from the EU, Jerome. So before I dive into the awesomeness which was just presented behind me, I wish to extend a particular level of thanks to the European Union for their continued commitment to the protection and restoration of Jamaica's forests. It is not lost on us. It is not lost on us the awesome enormity of the contributions that you've made through a number of spaces on the area of forestry. RISE Life Management and Forestry. It does have a nice ring to it, though. The suggestion I'd make, though, is that perhaps it is time to look at a name change. And not just RISE. Perhaps it now needs to be risen, and the N can stand for nature. Because ultimately, it is through the partnership and preservation of nature that all of the other development goals become possible. And I think it is such a good feeling when you see the varying facets of society, the varying arms of civil society, NGOs, of our multilateral partners, our bilateral partners, come together to create an initiative that uses nature in a sustainable way to trigger economic activity. That's not always how human beings have used this beautiful planet that we have. In fact, many of the challenges that we face now in 2023 specifically because projects like the one that we are speaking about today, was not the general doctrine with how we approached our economic development. So one of the things, and you said you're walking and people talking about it, they say you're going to live long. One of the things I think we all hope is that we will be able to maintain the way we live, or maintain the standard of living that human beings have come to enjoy while maintaining nature for a long time. But it won't happen by accident. It won't happen continuing down the path that we have been on as human beings. Jamaica is not one of your more developed countries. It is not one of your greater emitters or your greater degraders of the environment. But it is a nation that is impacted by the decisions of more developed partners. It is a nation that does hold its moral duty to ensure that it does not contribute to national, regional, and international problems very seriously. And at the Forestry Department, we have been looking for partners to ensure that we're able to achieve what is expected of our national management of our natural resources. And we've been doing a number of things. The first thing that we've been doing is ensuring that we move down the process of modernizing our legislative frameworks. And that isn't just at the Forestry Department, though the new Forestry Act, which I'd hoped would have gone to Parliament today, but the rain did not allow. However, the new Forestry Act will go in a matter of days to the Parliament, which is something that we're very happy about. We're also working actively to ensure that the fines under the NRCA Act, under the Wildlife Protection Act, are fit for purpose to ensure that we protect firstly what we have, because ultimately there has to be the capacity to enforce. But we're also looking at the total gamut of our legislative construct to ensure that it meets international obligations, but also is fit for purpose for our jurisprudence and moves us towards the SDGs that we're signatories of, and certainly our environmental targets as listed in Vision 2030. And that will require a total overhaul. And one of the things that I would say to our partners, both from the EU and Spain, that has come to light with the varying projects that we've worked on, and I never used to be a fan of this as an overarching concept, but we do see the need for further institutional capacity building to ensure that we're able to deliver against our ambitions. Because ambition is one thing, and Jamaica is a very ambitious nation as it relates to climate action, as it relates to environmental action, as it relates to protection of its oceans. But the institutional capacity to carry forward that ambition is not always there. We're a small developing nation. Though we have turned the corner economically, we still have capacity gaps. And it is why partnerships with multilaterals, with brother and sister nations, with bilateral partnerships, with NGOs, with civil society are so absolutely important, because we'll never achieve what we want to without working together. And I think that is evident here today. When you have an organization such as Rise Life Management, the CCCD, the Forestry Department, the EU, working together in this way, it gives you some hope. It gives you hope that some of those ambitious targets that we've set will indeed be achieved. So for instance, Jamaica has for a long time been a member of the High Ambition Coalition. Long before the Global Biodiversity Framework was agreed last year at COP in Montreal, Jamaica said it would protect 30% of its landmass, 30% of its EEZ by 2030. Well, I'm happy to report that we have reached to just about 27% with the actions of the Forestry Department over the last 2 years. That is because we completed protection of over 78,000 hectares of the cockpit country, the single largest protected area in the Caribbean. It's because we completed the protection of the Black River and the nearshore morass. It is because we completed protection of the Pedro Keys and its banks. It's because we put forward 14 new forestry reserves. It's because we completed a legislative amendment that allowed us to declare ecologically sensitive areas, that legislated cohesive management of sensitive areas. So we are making some progress in that regard. But partnerships are important because we have set the lofty goal of completing 3 million trees in, 4 weeks? Jerome. Now, 3 million trees, it's a nice round number. We expect it to be 1 tree per Jamaican. Now, we just came out of the worst drought Jamaica has ever had. The last 12 months saw 11 months that had less rainfall than its 30-year average, saw less rainfall than the previous year. It is only in June this year that we marginally passed our rainfall targets. October to March cumulatively saw the least rainfall Jamaica has ever had. July, temperature records broken. August, temperature records broken. September, temperature records tied. All this while the rainfall patterns have also shifted. Because if you're looking at a total national rainfall, it can give you a flawed impression of what the situation is. In February, Kingston and St. Andrew had 8% of its 30-year average rainfall. Not 8% below, 8%. That's been a challenge, and I'm not here to discuss water today, but it does impact heavily the forestry sector, especially where we're in the process of reforesting. So on initiatives such as the greening of urban spaces, which we've brought the forestry department into, where we planted 10,000 seedlings on Labor Day along the east-west highway. We've been having to, do some creative things to ensure that the area is irrigated and kept moist enough to ensure that we have a high survivability rate. And these are the new challenges that come even with great and strong ambition. Jamaica is ambitious. That's not up for debate. But Jamaica has to move rapidly to build the capacity to deliver against its ambition. Stating it isn't sufficient. So I can tell you, immediately after Jerome and Ainsley and team complete the 3 million tree initiative, I'm sure taking the learnings that we have seen, the Prime Minister will declare a new target of 5 million trees in 3 years. Because Jamaicans want to ensure that their country is managed in a sustainable way. We intend to plant 1 million trees along the east-west south coast highway. We expect many of those to be trees that bloom all year round. A, it will be aesthetically beautiful. B, it will have a cooling effect on a significant housing development which is taking place along that southern corridor. Something very important and something we're going to work towards, and we're building in the lessons and the learnings to ensure that we put in the irrigation capacity to move in blocks of 10,000 as we start to see the benefit. Something very, very important. So we're protecting what we have, certainly moving at a much faster rate than we ever have before. We will be targeting 40% by 2030 because Jamaicans like to win. So 46% of the country covered in forests. I don't see why 40% of the country can't be protected. Ultimately, we have to protect what we have. We're replanting. But we're also investing in some strategic areas within the forestry department. We are out to tender, I believe, Jerome, the process should be coming to an end on the, I don't know what you call it, that machine that assists you in a tree relocator. Development comes with challenges. It's not always easy, and it's very hurtful when you see a mature, beautiful tree that could have been moved be cut down. So the forestry department got clearance from the Ministry of Finance to purchase a tree relocator, which allows you to remove and scoop up, so to speak, in very crude terms, trees with root structures that allow for it. It won't save every tree, but we're going to try on government development projects to save the ones that we can. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone will catch when you relocate it, etc., but we are doing what we can. We're also looking through legislation at particular tree protection orders. So not just on protecting an acre of forest, but looking at trees that we believe form a part of our story, of our heritage, and of the natural assets of an area, and putting tree protection orders in place to ensure that development does not work through, but rather works around these natural assets that we have. So the Forestry Department is one of the agencies that I'm particularly proud of. They've done excellent work. the next phase for them, or the next new stream of work, will really be as they work with us to create significant increases in urban forestry. We have several projects that I think will mark the success that we need to have by 2030. And in closing, there are two things that I want persons to understand here. One, Jamaica's forest cover has actually increased over the last 20 years. It's not widely understood, and we discuss deforestation as though Jamaica hasn't made some deliberate steps to increase forest cover. It's a statistical fact. There is an area we're having a particular challenge with, and that is with our mangrove forests. And contrary to popular discussions, not that you don't have a challenge on the North Coast, but your larger challenge with your mangrove forest is actually along the South Coast forest, certainly between Helsha Bay all the way out to southern Clarendon. That is where Jamaica has seen the largest loss in its mangrove cover. And it is where we have designed several critical interventions that will bring about the restoration of our mangrove forests. Certainly, you see some of the work that is taking place along the Palisadoes stretch. I know the Forestry Department is actively scoping projects, which I know the EU will be eager to support us with along the Old Harbour into Helsha section. We are working very closely with Prof. Forrest and his team in the initiatives that they have in southern Clarendon. But this is the major challenge, certainly as it relates to our forest cover. And we are going to be asking all partners to work with us, either in adopting areas, working with us as volunteers, or providing funds where you're able to do so. Now, mangrove forests in this case are critically important. 1.6 million people live behind where there's supposed to be mangrove protection. A single kilometer of sea revetment is 10 million US dollars. Now, as well as we're doing, we don't have million to run from the airport all the way to Rocky Point. So we cannot allow the degradation to remain. We cannot allow further degradation in that corridor, or with the rising sea levels that we're experiencing, our challenges will be exacerbated. Again, I thank Rise Life Management, I thank your partners, I thank the EU for your continued support, and we look forward to more such launches in this very room. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Samuda, for those remarks, and also, giving us very good context of some of the development progress that we've made. Thank you, Senator, as it relates to the work of not just the Forestry Department, but, the broader environment protection agenda. And we do hope that Senator will continue to even represent the ambitions or the achievements of the Rise Life project, the IFMAL project rather, especially as it nears COP 28, he mentioned, which is the largest climate conference globally. So somehow we hope that this will also be featured in Jamaica's achievements and what we've been able to do. So Senator spoke a lot about ambition, and I'm going to introduce my ambition in this segment, because even though we started late, we do have to maintain the time because there's another event at 12:30. So I'm saying this to encourage the rest of presenters to bear in mind the time constraints that we're now under. With this said, I'll now invite Mr. Jerome Smith, Principal Director of Forest Operations, to bring his remarks.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be very mindful of the time. The good thing about not being the first to speak is that you can take what is known as a shortcut in saying all protocols observed. But I do want to personally welcome you to the Forestry Department. And I do want to say that following our minister speaking is not an easy feat. And you heard some of the commitments he made. One of the things I tell my team members, my mantra is that the reward for good work is? More work. So having completed 3 million trees, you hear what the minister said, right? We're going to plant 5 million. So I'll just say he's not here, but we remain committed and we're up to the task. But today we must speak about what has been happening with this project. And I will get into my greetings. Today we gather to celebrate the closeout of a project that stands as a beacon of hope for the marginalized and the vulnerable communities of Jamaica. The Improved Forest Management and Livelihoods for a Better Jamaica, IFMAL project, is a testament to collaboration, inclusivity, and a commitment to sustainable development. This transformative project, funded by the European Union and championed by RISE, soon to be Risen, Life Management Systems Services, in collaboration with the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf and with the support of yours truly, Forestry Department, embarked on a mission to create a lasting impact on our environment and the lives of countless individuals. The core of this initiative revolved around inclusivity. The Forestry Department finds it heartening to witness a project that not only sought to restore and preserve our forest, but also extended its arms to embrace members of the deaf community, small-scale farmers, rural women, and elderly artisans by actively involving these diverse groups. IFMAL wasn't just about planting trees, it was about planting seeds of empowerment and opportunity. That really stuck out for this project for me. You can clap here, I'll pause. The outlined activities of IFMAL paint a vivid picture of its impact. The project exceeded its targets in almost every area. That's also resounding. Our congratulations to you on your success and the many more lives that this project has touched as a result. We are happy about all that was accomplished. We are especially excited about the project's completion of the DNA analysis on samples from 7 provenances, conclusively identifying the true Jamaican mahogany species. This, coupled with establishing a nursery dedicated to growing certified Jamaican mahogany seedlings, will significantly support our efforts at the Forestry Department to expand this tree's population and conserve those that are still standing. The endorsement and support of the Government of Jamaica through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation stands as a testament to the project's alignment with the national goals, particularly in the fight against climate change, as was mentioned before. Let us not overlook the broader context of which IFMAL stands. The project is not only an isolated effort, but part of a larger series of contracts to conserve forests in various regions. It's a collaborative effort, a chorus of projects working hand in hand to protect our environment, educate our communities, and foster sustainable growth. As we stand at this juncture of celebration and reflection, let us pledge our support, dedication, and active participation in ensuring that the successes of the Improved Forest Management and Livelihoods for a Better Jamaica project are not wasted. Let us build upon the knowledge gained and the strong foundation laid by RISE, soon to be Risen, and our country. The Forestry Department invites us to nurture these seeds of change together, cultivate them with determination, and witness a Jamaica where our forests thrive, our people prosper, and inclusivity is the order of the day. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I know my now retired English teacher, she doesn't like when we said it in class, but thanks for keeping it short and spicy. Right, and we know the plug there from Rise to Risen, but I know our ED will have the final say on that. And now we're going to break the oral presentations for some entertainment at this point in time. We're going to invite the PA Deaf Dance Company to indulge us in some entertainment. Before we proceed, please make them welcome. And we are going to, I think we should have, I saw some persons doing it, of course, making sure that we do the inclusive applause as well. Can you pull this back a little bit? Oh, they don't want to. Wasn't that, well, I think you still can hear me. Wasn't that a beautiful performance? Right, it was so beautiful. Just a reminder that while we may be differently able, there is no limit on talent. I was almost tempted to do one of the moves to capture the microphones, but I probably need to spend some more time with Pa Deaf Dance Company. So thank you once more, Pa. I'm hoping I'm getting it right. Thank you, Pa Deaf Dance Company, for that beautiful performance just now. Now, in the interest of time, we are going to jump ahead or hop over one of our agenda items and head to the testimonial from Jason Campbell from the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf. If time allows, we may come back to the feature stories, but we're going to move a little bit more stringently to keep within the time. So please welcome Jason. And we keep our applause going. Thank you so much. Well, it's diversity, so we can clap and as well. Ear clap and hand clap.
So the first question for Jason Campbell is, how was the climate change training? Well, it was great. It was wonderful. The first time I've been hearing about climate change, it was truly wonderful. We gathered together in groups at JDV there in Manchester, and we enjoyed the discussion. It was perfectly done. The second question for Mr. Campbell is, what did you learn? Wow, it's so much information. The training was great. I've learned so much. And why? Before, I was ignorant about climate change. I didn't know what it really entails. So after exposing to all those information about climate change, I able to manage my plans better when it comes on to climate change. The third and last question for Mr. Campbell is, how will you use the climate change information going forward? And again, all the information that I've learned, it benefits me greatly. When it comes down to my farming at my home, it will help my family to, benefit more. And I've also learned how to better manage when it comes down to water collection. And also how I can better help my community in the long run.
Yes, keep both forms of applause going. Thank you so much, Jason. Look at him, so pleased with himself. But we love to see it. I mean, a lot of times, even from Sunday school in church, I recall always having sign language interpreters. But for me, it's a first actually seeing someone given an opportunity to respond. And I think this is a kind of inclusivity and participation that we love to see. So we're not only just doing it on behalf of them, but making sure that everyone is included. So thank you so much. And it was great listening and seeing and learning from Jason what his experience was like being a part of this initiative. Now we move, well, still with the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, but at this time we're going to invite Mr. Leon Sams, who is the Executive Director, to bring partner remarks. Yes, you can copy.
Good morning. Good morning, all. And of course, recognizing the time limit that we have. It's unfortunate the people at the bottom of the list usually get less time. But to the European Union T group, the RISE Life Management Services team, the partners and project beneficiaries, good morning, on behalf of the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf. Just to be very, very short, I just want to express a sincere thank you on behalf of this community for the investment that has been made into a project like this. The investment really represents and it speaks to the direction in which Jamaica is going. And it's an inclusive Jamaica, a Jamaica where everybody is counted as equals. And this investment is so, so critical. And so for us at the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, real quickly, I have a lot of notes, but I just summarize it in four points. Really is for us, the forestry areas, they're not just forestry areas. It represents the pride of the deaf community. The pride of the deaf community where we now become knowledgeable, first and foremost, through the massive trainings that happen. And secondly, we get an opportunity to play a rightful part in the development of this country, in the preservation of its natural resources and the economic aspect of our development. And how many times do you see where a project surpasses their targets? Not very often. And to see we have expanded where we have planted, and of course, say with me, 1,000, or say it after me, 1,445 trees. Let's go. 1,445 trees. And that's amazing. For a group like us, we have the potential, and of course, we have demonstrated that in the results of this project. So, one of the things, and as I reflected on coming here, there's this thing in social media that says the wellness bench. This is the wellness forestry area. And it's a space that has been created for economic and environmental and educational purposes, as well as for social and recreational purposes. Many, many benefits to come. And so the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf is positioning itself to be able to truly capitalize on this investment. And for us, it is not the end. We're at a closing ceremony, but for us, it's the beginning of greater things within the deaf community. And so, I'm not going over the statistics because the ED from RISE had mentioned those. But of course, so Jason is among the 140 deaf persons who are now trained. And the fact that they're now utilizing it in their daily operation speaks volume of how inclusive we are now becoming as a country. And I encourage RISE and the EU and the Forestry Department to never forget the groups of persons in Jamaica with disabilities. We can and we deserve that opportunity to partake in national development. And finally, the fact that we have trained 30 deaf persons in bamboo craft is amazing. The fact, did everybody take a look and see what's happening on that table? Great. So that's deaf pride. Deaf pride. Have a nice little ring to it, right? And soon, and well, it is happening now, and importantly, is that CCCD has been taking a different position and has been pushing to ensure that every deaf person is proud to be a deaf Jamaican here in Jamaica. And that is our position, and that is where we want to be putting, repositioning our deaf persons. And of course, sooner or later, you will see deaf made becoming a normal and prevalent concept and statement here in Jamaica and across the world. Somebody say deaf made. Deaf made. So deaf clothing, deaf accessories, deaf craft items, furniture made by the deaf persons, and of course displayed here today is deaf entertainment. And thanks to the PAC group for their work with the deaf community as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is my minute and a half. And I really want to express again, thank you for this project. It's a huge project, and the work was not easy, but the results are there for us to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sams. You know, from the very purposeful walk to the podium, I could see him and then hear him beaming with deaf pride, talking about the deaf impact. So thank you for leaving that deaf inspiration with us today. So we're really grateful and really heartened at the progress and you know, the wonderful things that your organization has been doing, and for the beneficiaries, of course. Now we move to the greetings or remarks from Mrs. Ashley Rizzo from Beanie Bud, Jamaica, who is not able to be with us today. So I will read her greetings on her behalf, and I think we have a video to follow. Yes, okay. So this is Ashley now, not me. Greetings from Beanie Bud founder Ashley Rizzo. I have asked the Rise Live team to first of all express my apologies for my absence today, which is unavoidable, but in no way diminishes how I and the group of artisans and farmers of Beanie Bud regard this important project. In fact, the Improved Forest Management and Livelihoods for a Better Jamaica project has been the highlight of the year for us as an organization and for many of the artisans and farmers in the communities of Glengough and Mount Industry, located in the hills of St. Catherine, where we at Beanie Bud work. This project has not just provided tangible resources, and the training programs were so badly needed, but also great encouragement for our community along our journey to become once again the center of straw weaving in Jamaica. Indeed, many decades ago, much of the economic and social activity of these hillside communities revolved around the weaving of craft and home decor products, both for the local and tourist markets. Unfortunately, the promotion of cheap imports in the 80s and 90s led to a decline in the market for those locally made goods, which resulted in artisans giving up on the craft and farmers abandoning straw farming and the important role that these fibrous plants play in preventing landslides and erosion. Now, years later, we give thanks that the consumer interest in sustainability and authenticity has evolved, and consumers now seek out Jamaican handmade products made from natural fibers. And so, Thanks to the support of projects like this one, IFMAL, and the investment of our company and others, the Glengoff and Mount Industry artisan groups and farmers have been able to respond to this demand by once more engaging in straw farming and weaving as viable economic activities. Of course, there is still much more work to be done, but we are proud of the progress that has been made, and we take this opportunity to thank the RISE team and the European Union for their important contribution to our community's effort to preserve and promote straw weaving and farming, with the added benefit of improved livelihoods and better forest management. Thank you. And now we look to the video that is to follow.
The land that easy to really slide away. I'm Leroy Morrison, a farmer from way back when. I was born in it at least. And I always grow straw to sell. People buy straw to make jippy japper hat and do many other different type of craft. So it's also, we use it to hold up the land that easy to really slide away.
We are at Glengoff High School, March 22nd, and we have invited persons from RISE to come by to teach us, and persons from the community of Glengoff to teach us about the jippy japper straw. We started out by talking about how it is planted, how it is reaped, and then how it is processed. And we also participated. We had 25 participants, students from grade 10 and 11. They learned about the straw. Most of them have already seen the plant. They have it in their backyards, they have it in their community. But only about 2 or 3 knew what it was used for.
Okay, we apologize for the visual interruption. We know Murphy's Law, although I think it has been acting like a little poltergeist since the proceedings, but we will try to show the video at the end if we have the mingle session and see if we can have that on display. But nonetheless, I think based on where we are in the program now, I think we would have fully received the impact of the program. And I know we caught a little bit from Mas Leroy, who was talking there. So we do know, of course, that the beneficiaries are indeed grateful for the experience that they've had through the IFMAL project. So, and maybe Rice can make this available in another format or on their other platforms. So yes, so we'll be happy to. So you can follow Rise on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and I'm sure that they'll make these visuals and other information available there. And I'd like to apologize as we do not have the representative from the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Mining. They send their regards, but now we'll move to the ceremonial handover where we will have a presentation, a handover. Oh, I'm sorry, because I'm so rushing, I'm jumping over everything. Because I want to set an example of managing the time as my presenters have done so expertly. But let me pull back. Before we go to the handover, I am going to hand over to Mr. Roger Turner from Tulla Estates, who we've referenced so much and who contributed a lot to this initiative. So, Mr. Tulla, my apologies. We welcome you. Mr. Turner, sorry, welcome you to the platform. I may probably need to borrow your glasses.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am assured by ChatGPT 3 that 2.5 pages will be delivered in 3.5 minutes, in keeping with your time. What a great tool. In May 2021, Mrs. Sunita Abrahams and I met at Tulla Estates and designed the concept note for what was to be this amazing project. This encompassed the following. We had to deliver genetically superior grafted cocoa plants, genetically proven Jamaican mahogany seedlings, and hybrid Maipan coconut seedlings to registered RADA farmers to create a diverse, climate-smart agroforest that will be able to generate weekly income, seasonal revenue, and a legacy bank of first world high-value furniture lumber. We were to establish a nursery to graft these cocoa plants and grow mahogany seedlings in, as Mrs. Goss mentioned, these superb pots from Washington State in America that in their design encompasses so many fine features to secure the tree. And we had to create a climate-smart fermenter dryer that is fueled by solar panels to ferment and dry cocoa beans that are grown in the optimum wet parishes around the island, where collectives of farmers can go up the value chain and create economies of scale to enter the bean to bar market on the island and in Europe. I'm pleased to say that our teams have delivered. We produced over 3,000 grafted cocoa plants, where the ICS 95 variety was grafted onto the IMC 67 rootstock. We grew over 1,700 seedlings from seeds harvested off the T2 reference mahogany tree at Tulla. We've also designed and built the fermenter dryer, which is awaiting on the cocoa harvest due in January 2024 to prove its purpose. At the core of good agricultural practices is a document procedure that records an event that has been detailed in the agronomy of the crop, and that is based on proven data set or a proven data record. This mantra uplifts the standard of husbandry and will uplift farmers in deep rural communities who are benefiting from the superior plants they have received. These plants will move yields from 150 to 200 kilograms per acre to 500 to 700 kilograms per acre. And with these superior, so many kind people and institutions have made this possible. And I'll take you through a chronology of events that indicate how we don't live as individuals in a country, but we live as collectives, and we live better by sharing together. It started with a USAID cocoa workshop at Orange River Research Station on the 10th of July 2009, where Kamaldeo Maharaj of the Cocoa Research Unit in Trinidad demonstrated how to do a micro-hypocotyl graft. This revolutionary graft opened the door to clonal fields of superior varieties of cocoa. Dr. Percy Miller of the Cocoa Board brought his wealth of knowledge to the Cocoa Board's Propagation Committee in 2010. And with Neville Kondapa, we searched the Orange River Research Station for varieties. We searched the archives and scanned all the annual reports of the Cocoa Board into an e-format, and it was in the 1968 report penned by Brian Topper that highlighted the most productive varieties for Jamaica, and we made variety and rootstock selections at the station with Adrian Burke and Xavier Gray. The University of Reading's International Cocoa Germplasm Database was used to screen these varieties for disease tolerance, for resident and non-resident diseases in Jamaica, and we fine-tuned our selections. By October 2010, we were producing grafted plants of Imperial College Selections ICS1, grafted onto the Iquitos mixed Calabayo IMC 67 rootstock. Dr. Elizabeth Johnson of the Inter-American Institute of Cooperation, ICA, produced a publication, The Field Guide to ICS Clones of Trinidad, that lists the cocoa selections made by Pound and Cheeseman during the 1930s and 1940s. This publication highlights the merits of each variety and drove the economic and cultural selection process. A Trinidad cocoa farmer in her own right, I could not have delivered on this project without her unstinting support, her deep knowledge of growing cocoa, and her guidance on the way forward. During 2018, we produced enough dry cocoa beans to have coffee traders Little More make chocolate bars. The tasting panel found the texture fine and the taste excellent and unique when compared to other dark chocolates. Jason Sharp and Nadine Burry have continued to work with us to improve fermentation quality, and we are very grateful for their guidance and advice. We could not have proven our genetics without the help of Clayton Williams of the Jamaica Cocoa Farmers Association. In 2019, Mr. Williams afforded us the opportunity to have GPS-defined cocoa selections at Tulla and at the Orange River Research Station, tested by Olivier Fouet and Claire Lanaud of the CIRAD Institute in France. The results confirmed the varieties selected, ICS1 and ICS95, are true to type. Mrs. Ruth Barrett from RADA Linstead joined the project in 2011 and coordinated a farmer field day on the 14th of December 2022 to demonstrate the productivity of these varieties, the field layout, and the planting methods. 40 farmers and 8 RADA team members signed up on the day, and at the end of the day, the farmers requested plants. On the 8th of March 2023, we had another field day demonstrating the grafting method, the micro-hypocotyl grafting from Kamaldeo Maharaj in the new nursery, where 30 farmers and persons from Jakra and RADA grafted cocoa plants. Orange River is now producing grafted plants using Maharaj's method. Mrs. Barrett also helped facilitate us achieving our productivity incentive relief on imported items for this project, which saved the project on customs duties. In September 2021, William Masterton, a director of the Forestry Department, introduced the Sheila Ward of the International Society of Tropical Foresters, who coordinated with Céline Blanc-Julier of the Theunen Institute of Forest Genetics in Germany to do a DNA analysis of the Jamaican mahogany, Swetina mahogany. We coordinated with the O'Donnell of the Forestry Department, collected mahogany leaves from trees at 6 properties that were GPS defined in 3 parishes, and armed with NEPA and plant protection quarantine certificates, we achieved a waiver of the CITES Convention to export these leaves to Germany. Celine determined that the DNA at 7 genetic markers were Jamaican mahogany, and there was no hybridization with the introduced Honduran strains, even across 3 generations of trees at Tuller Estates. We can rebuild the mahogany trees in Jamaica. We can rebuild the forests from resident trees with the certainty that they will produce superb furniture lumber in 70 years' time. Louis Aitken and Paige Greaves-Todd at Tankweld have built a vertical helical ribbon fermenter dryer that will process the wet beans into fermented dry beans, ready for long-term storage or shipping. I must thank them for their patience and kind contribution as we assembled the many varied components to achieve this novel design. A special mention must be made of Don Cover's contribution when he helped build and construct the circuit diagram of the control panel that runs this fermented dryer over a 2-week cycle. Michael Opereki of RED also made a significant contribution during the installation of the solar panels that allow us to achieve a carbon positive profile during this stage of cocoa bean production. RISE's improved forest management and livelihoods for a better Jamaica encompasses more facets than one would care to mention. So with Sunita Abrahams, Nadine Chambers-Goss, Jody K. Carr, and Keisha Patrick's continuous support and help, we are able to stay on the correct track. Thank you very much, ladies. The opportunity to give back to our community arose out of the financial support afforded to all of us by the generosity of the European Union. How lucky we are to have such kind people living with us. I would like to formally thank Ansetio Rodriguez-Ruiz, Head of Cooperation at the European Delegation, and his team for being so generous and enabling us to transfer these resources to our community and make Jamaica a better Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner, for giving us the insight in all the technical work that had gone into protecting some of our near endangered species as well as our traditional export crops. Must commend you for the work, and you and your team for the work that has been done through Tuller Estates. All right, so at this time we are going to go into the ceremonial handover where the Tuller Estates will present some plants to the Royal Botanical Hope Gardens Forestry Department and Jamaica Agricultural Society. I don't think we have the rep from Jamaica Agricultural Society. However, this is a ceremonial handover following today. On another occasion, each entity will collect the additional number of plants. So we have Mrs. Carla Myrie, Executive Director, here from the And I do see, okay, Mr. Smith from Jerome Smith. Okay, yes, I am going to step away from the podium, but invite Mr. Smith to also receive on behalf of forestry.
Yes, you need rise in there as well. I mean, forestry's in there. There you go. Three, two, one.
Thank you very much. Okay. Superior genetic. Genetically superior mahogany tree. Another genetically superior.
All right.
You are not interested in
Then sure forestry's in this one. There we go. Am I blocking this? That's okay? All right.
welcome to. There you go. We do cocoa. From Becky. All right. Cocoa. We do cocoa to that one. That's it. Cocoa was in the JS, wasn't it? So, Rose, I have ordered in the pickup. Okay. I have the full amount is after the pickup. Okay. I was going to mention it goes to Newcastle, isn't it?
Okay. All right, thank you so much for that handover presentation. And I know the Royal Hope Botanical Gardens, the Forestry Department, and Jamaica Agricultural Society will be most grateful for the genetically superior varieties of plants that they've received just now. And as we wind down, we enter into yet another significant aspect of the program as it's time for the keynote address, and we will invite Mr. Anicheta Ruiz Rodriguez, Head of Corporation of the Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica and Belize, if I may say, the wind beneath the wings of this project, to come and move the keynote address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, for the sake of time, all protocols have been established. Then we have almost 2 pages already done. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I have to say that I feel really happy today because we are closing a project that I attended when we launched the project. It was 1.5 years ago in Manchester. Was my first. I was just arrived to the country, and it was the first time I went out of the capital to see the other Jamaica than Kingston. And I remember we spent the day there as well. We planted also some trees. I have a couple of trees that I planted there. And I'm very curious to see how tall are they now. Then I'm happy not just because in our job to see how you launch a project, how you close a project is already a reason to be happy, but also because I saw in the presentation that was done, Nadine's presentation, that the objectives have been not just reached, but overpassed. And in some of them, for many times, what was established as an objective. And another reason for my happiness is that I see that the way how it has been done and the way and the objectives that have been reached allow for thinking something that doesn't happen every day, is that the project is sustainable, that the project will continue, that the funding comes to an end, but the actions and all the interventions are going to continue alive in this project. Forests are something a little bit magic. You know, in European literature, there is a lot of fantastic literature about forests, because forests have the magic of stabilizing the climate. Forests can regulate ecosystems, protect biodiversity, play an integral part in soaking up carbon dioxide. They support livelihoods. They supply goods and services that can drive to a sustainable growth. In other words, they help to improve water, soil, air quality. They reduce soil erosion, and they give us fruits, wood, and overall, a much better environment for our well-being. Forests help us to link our environment, our economies, and our people. As you know, the European Union is engaged in the Green Deal, trying to transform our planet towards a more sustainable society, especially in Europe, but looking as well for allies in the entire world in this titanic work. Mr. Smith, thank you very much for receiving us at the Forestry Department of Jamaica, and congratulations to you and your team for the impressive job done in the sector for the implementation of the forest policy in Jamaica, as well as for the National Forest Management and Conservation Plan. All indicate that we will accomplish our budget support program, that is the big framework of this individual program that we are closing today, as a great success. And this concrete project that has been possible thanks to the funding of 300,000 euros from the EU, but more than that, it has been possible thanks to ability developed by RISE implementing along the years of our projects, not only this one, but also other projects in different sectors. As I said, the European Union has probably been the fuel, but RISE has been the engine of this project. This project is about environment, about climate change, about forests, but there is something else, something more beyond that. And this is that in this project we worked with people, with disabled people. We followed the activation of the Jamaica's Disabilities Act, and we were able to empower and protect the rights of persons living with disabilities. The EU is happy that through this project, persons living with disabilities, small farmers, artisans have been empowered to make a way for themselves economically. This project has produced many links. On one side, we have the link between agriculture and forestry, with cocoa and coconut. The link between civil society, private sector, research institutions, and government agencies. The link between artisans in local communities and the international tourism market. the link between protection of the environment and having a local economy functioning. I note also some key achievements with the 14-acre arboretum, providing a hands-on learning experience together with the training for students and the community on the importance of biodiversity, sustainable forestry practice, climate resilient agriculture practice, and environmental stewardship. I have observed the successful training in bamboo craft that we have there, imparting crucial knowledge in sustainable practice for the use of wood and non-wood forest resources, particularly among persons with disabilities, as I mentioned before. This opens new avenues for economic empowerment, enabling these individuals to contribute actively to local and global markets. I also noticed the promotion of huskus grass, Jipi Japa straw. I have a hat in my office that I received 1.5 years ago in Manchester, done with Jipi Japa, for both, for soil erosion mitigation and for supplying materials for straw craft production, together with trainings of artisans in the design, production, and marketing of straw craft products. It gives the skilled individuals in traditional craft a new energy and an economic empowerment. I congratulate the research done through DNA analysis that has been also mentioned here many times, of trees to identify the true Jamaican mahogany, classified as near threatened on the International Union for the Conservation of Nature Red List. Also, the nursery dedicated to growing certified Jamaican mahogany seedlings and disease-tolerant cocoa plants. This will significantly enhance the capability of more farmers to access the dry cocoa bean export market, thereby elevating their earning potential. You know that there is a lot of chocolate production in this island, but there is not enough cocoa beans production. Then we need to promote this in order to get all the necessary cocoa beans for the growing chocolate industry in the country. This project successfully took a comprehensive, complementary, and sustainable approach to improving forest management in Jamaica. We should all sow seeds to build a more inclusive, productive, and resilient Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez, for that moving, I was about to say closing remarks, but closing remarks certainly from the partner perspective. I sat there listening to you, and one of the things I love to do as well is to draw the parallels from what we've experienced. I said at the beginning of this program that the rain did not rain on this parade, and there was no dampening of the spirits and the energy in this room as we reflect on what has been a most impactful initiative achieved through the IFMAL project. So I want to thank the stakeholders and the partners who gave of themselves and poured into such an impactful experience. I think we draw the parallel. It rained on the outside, but certainly we see the alignment with the showers of abundance as it relates to the positive experience that our beneficiaries and stakeholders would have had through this initiative. And we look forward to, I do think, all projects have a cycle, but what we love is it's about imparting lifelong skills that will continue into perpetuity, we hope, as it relates to all the stakeholders and the beneficiaries who would have benefited. Before I do bring the curtains to an official close, I noticed that Mr. Rodriguez and others made several references to the craft products, and I feel compelled to add a pitch because we know that the holiday season is around the corner. So I invite you all to engage with the products. I know our friends of Jamaica seated here, maybe you're going back for the holidays, or even if you're spending your holiday in Jamaica, I'm sure that your friends and family would love to experience some of the craft products that we have here on display. And for those who have Office Pixie, or you want to, impress your loved ones with some very different Christmas gifts, be sure to indulge. I hope they have some earrings over there for myself, but certainly we are really pleased with all that we've learned, all that we've garnered here today. And it has been my pleasure to be moderating this exercise, and thank you all for taking the time, for being here, for sharing with us the closeout of a wonderful program that was IFMAL. Thank you so much. And I do think we have refreshments on the outside, and we will partake inside. Oh, on the outside, because what I wanted to find out, the video that we wanted to show, we'll see if we can have it running in the background, and of course, feel free to take a look at what it is that Beanie Buds was trying to show us before, and the testimonial. So thanks once again, everyone, for making the journey out and for engaging, and we bid you all the best in your future endeavors, and continue to keep warm and dry.